There is a moment that almost every married couple in this country will face, and the tax code is waiting for it. The day one spouse dies, the surviving one becomes poorer, almost overnight. And then, the federal government does something that feels impossible to believe. It raises their taxes, less income coming in, and a bigger share of it going out. It has a name among the few advisors who are honest about it. They call it the widow's penalty, and it quietly takes tens of thousands of dollars from grieving spouses every single year. Mostly women, because women tend to outlive their husbands. Almost nobody is warned about it until the first tax return comes due, and the number on the page makes no sense. I want to walk you through exactly how this trap works, because once you see the machinery, you can disarm it, but only while both spouses are still alive. Everything I am about to show you has to be done before the funeral, not after. After, the door is closed. I am going to give you the 7 moving parts of the widow's penalty and then the moves that protect against each one. Stay with me to the end, because the last move is the one that saves the most money and the one the fewest people ever make. Let me start with the engine that drives the whole thing. And it is something most people have never thought about. The IRS decides your filing status by where you stand on the 31st of December. For the year your spouse actually passes away, you are still allowed to file married filing jointly one final time. But the very next year, you file as a single person. There is one narrow exception called qualifying surviving spouse that lets you keep the married rates for 2 more years. And it only applies if you have a dependent child living in your home. For the vast majority of seniors whose children are grown and gone, that exception does not exist. So 1 year you are taxed as a couple, and the next year, while you are still grieving, you are taxed as a single person on almost the same income. That single switch is what sets off everything that follows. Number 1 is the bracket collapse, and this is the heart of the trap. The tax brackets for a married couple are exactly twice as wide as the brackets for a single person. In 2026, a married couple stays in the 12% bracket all the way up to $96,950 of taxable income. A single person crosses out of 12% and into 22% at just $48,475, less than half as far. So the moment a survivor files single, income that used to be taxed at 12% gets taxed at 22%, even though not a single thing about that income has changed. The brackets did not move. The person simply lost the spouse who doubled the width of every one of them. Number 2 is the standard deduction getting cut almost in half. In 2026, a married couple filing jointly gets a standard deduction of $32,200. A single person gets $16,100, exactly half. There is still a small additional deduction for being 65 or older, and there is still the new senior bonus deduction of up to $6,000 that runs through 2028, and those help. But the core deduction that shields your income from tax shrinks by half the year the survivor files alone. Less shield, narrower brackets, same income. You can already see where this is going. Number 3 is the one that feels the cruelest, because it is the income actually going down. When one spouse dies, Social Security does not keep paying both checks. The survivor keeps the larger of the 2 benefits, and the smaller one stops completely. So if one of you was collecting $2,000 a month and the other was collecting $1,400, the survivor does not get $3,400 anymore. The survivor gets $2,000. That $1,400 check is simply gone, which can be $15,000 or $16,000 a year vanishing from the household at the exact moment everything else is getting more expensive to face alone. Number 4 is that more of the Social Security that remains becomes taxable. Whether your Social Security is taxed depends on something called provisional income. And here is the quiet unfairness built into it. For a married couple, the income thresholds where Social Security starts getting taxed are $32,000 and $44,000. For a single person, those same thresholds drop to $25,000 and $34,000. They are lower for one person than they were for 2. So the survivor, living on less money, often finds that a larger percentage of her Social Security is now exposed to tax than when there were two people and two checks in the house. Number 5 is the required minimum distribution crossfire. And this one catches people who think they can simply spend less to stay safe. Starting at age 73, the IRS forces you to pull a minimum amount out of every traditional IRA and 401k you own, whether you need the money or not. That forced withdrawal counts as taxable income, no matter what you do with it. While both spouses were alive, that distribution was absorbed inside the wide married brackets. After one spouse dies, the very same withdrawal, often on a very similar account balance, gets pushed up into the narrower single brackets and taxed harder. The survivor cannot turn it off. The law requires the money to come out, and the law requires it to be taxed at the single rate. Number 6 is the Medicare surcharge, and most people do not even know it is hiding here. It is called IRMAA, the Income-Related Monthly Adjustment Amount, and it is an extra charge added to your Medicare premiums once your income passes a certain line. And just like everything else, the line for a single person is half of the line for a couple. In 2026, the surcharge starts at around $218,000 of income for a married couple, but only around $109,000 for a single person. A survivor whose income looks modest as half of a couple can suddenly find herself over the single line, paying hundreds or even thousands of dollars a year in higher Medicare premiums. And because Medicare looks at your tax return from 2 years earlier, the bill often arrives long after the loss, when she has no idea what triggered it. So there it is. The filing status flips to single. The brackets collapse to half their width. The standard deduction is cut in half. One Social Security check disappears. More of the remaining check gets taxed. The forced retirement withdrawals get taxed harder. And the Medicare surcharge waits at a line set half as high. 6 blades, and they all fall at once, on the person least equipped at that moment to fight back. That is the widow's penalty. And now you know why the tax bill makes no sense to the person sitting at the kitchen table holding it. Now let me give you the part nobody puts in the title, which is what you actually do about it. Because the tax code that built this trap also contains every escape hatch. The work has to happen while both spouses are alive and both are healthy enough to sign documents and make changes. Here is where the real money is saved. The most powerful move is to slowly convert money out of your traditional IRA and into a Roth IRA during the years you are still married and still filing jointly. This is move number 7, and it is the one most people never make. While you are a couple, you can move money out of that traditional account and fill up those wide 12% and 22% married brackets at a known, reasonable tax rate. You pay the tax now, while the brackets are wide, and that money becomes a Roth account that is never taxed again. There are no forced withdrawals from a Roth. The growth is tax-free, and when one spouse passes, the survivor inherits an account she can draw from without it adding a single dollar to her taxable income or pushing her toward that Medicare surcharge. You are taking a lifetime of future taxes that would have landed on a grieving single filer and paying a smaller, controlled amount now, while there are still 2 of you to share the wide brackets. This takes several years to do well, which is exactly why you cannot wait. The second protective move is about your regular brokerage account and how it is titled because of something called the step-up in basis. When a spouse dies, the investments the survivor inherits get their cost reset to whatever they are worth on the day of death, and all the built-up gain before that simply disappears for tax purposes. A stock or a fund that was bought decades ago for very little can be inherited and sold the next day with little or no capital gains tax at all. But this only works if the account is titled correctly for your state, and the rules are different in community property states than in the rest of the country. This is worth one conversation with an estate attorney to make sure your accounts are set up to capture the full step-up, because the wrong titling can cost the survivor tens of thousands of dollars she never needed to pay. The third protective move is your pension, if you have one. Many pensions default to paying a larger check while the worker is alive and then stopping completely when that person dies. There is almost always an option to take a somewhat smaller monthly check in exchange for the pension continuing to pay the surviving spouse for the rest of her life. That choice is usually locked in at the moment you start drawing the pension, so it has to be considered before you retire, not after. If you are already locked into the single life option, a properly sized life insurance policy can sometimes replace that lost income for the survivor. But that too requires both spouses to be healthy enough to qualify, which again means now and not later. And the fourth protective move is the simplest one and the one people forget. Check the beneficiary designations on every retirement account, every life insurance policy, and every bank account, and make sure each one names the person you intend, and consider naming a backup beneficiary as well. These forms override whatever your will says. An out-of-date beneficiary form is one of the most common and most expensive mistakes in this entire area, and fixing it costs nothing but a few minutes. Let me tie it together, because the thread running through all of this is the same one that runs through everything the system does to seniors. The widow's penalty is not an accident, and it is not a secret. It has been documented for 40 years, and yet no one whose job touches your money has any reason to bring it up before it is too late. Your bank will not mention it. Most generic financial advisors will not model it. The IRS certainly will not warn you. It simply waits quietly for the day the household goes from 2 people to 1, and then it collects. But every single one of these traps can be softened or removed entirely with planning done while both spouses are still here, still well, and still able to act together. The couples who sit down and do this work protect the one who will be left behind. The couples who never get around to it leave that person to face 6 tax traps alone in the worst year of her life. If you are married, the most loving financial thing you can do is to model what your taxes will look like the year after one of you is gone, and then take the steps to protect whoever that survivor will be. Find a fee-only fiduciary advisor or an estate planning attorney who understands the widow's penalty, and bring them these 7 points. I will put all the details and the things to ask about in the description below. So do one thing for me right now. Send this to one married couple you care about, while both of them are still here to do something about it. Your parents, your sister and her husband, the couple next door, the 2 people at church who have been together 50 years and assume the system will treat the survivor kindly. It will not. One quiet conversation tonight between 2 people who still have time can save the one who is left behind tens of thousands of dollars and a cruel surprise in the hardest year they will ever face. That is what we are here for. I will see you in the next one.